This is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. I'm your host, Jeremy. Back in the studio here at All Points TV. How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, it's great, man. It's like I like the coolness. Like those 2 days are really hot.
Yeah.
God, that was miserable, man.
It was jungle fever, that's for sure, man.
It reminded me of Biloxi Blues. You ever see the movie?
No.
Yeah, as he kept on saying, it was like the story about Neil. The screenwriter. Anyway, he kept on. He was when he was a kid drafted in the military during the Second World War. He was sent to Biloxi, Mississippi, and it was hotter than blazes down there. And he kept on saying, "It's hot. It's like Africa hot. I don't know if I could stay here if it's this hot." You know, like the government's going to let him out of the army. You know.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, well, thankfully, just the beauty of Michigan let us out of the heat, and it's a nice, cool day. It's a beautiful day. What is it? June 20th. All right, so we got one more day of spring. This is the last day of spring. Tomorrow's the longest day of year, as you know it, summer solstice. So happy summer, everybody. Hey, we're back in the studios here. I got some news I want to share with you about medical marijuana. I want to let you guys know what's happening down at the Genesee County Compassion Club and get you up to speed on everything. So let's get this kicked off. We've got at first our announcements coming up soon here. Actually, just passed, I think, actually. Third Tuesday of the month, Soup Kitchen. I think we just had that going on. We'll be doing it again here next month, of course. We're serving up lunch. We serve at 11:30, and of course we're down at the Stewart Street North End Soup Kitchen. Catholic Charities, we love those guys, and are definitely glad to be a part of that. So thanks for being there, and please show up next month. Also, we got coming up here shortly, 710 party. It's going to be happening. We're going to be throwing down, man. We're going to do this bigger and better than we've ever done before. So get ready. It is a Tuesday, I do believe. So you know that you're not doing anything else. Get to the club, 710. It's going to be epic. And you guys are going to have a good time. I'm sure of it. So get on down. All right. That's it for announcements. Not a whole lot planned other than that. And I know that everybody had a good time out at the Cannabis Cup here a couple weekends ago. We've got the summer festivities going on. I believe this weekend is the opener for, what is it called? The Electric Forest? Electric Trees. The Flaming Trees. No, it's Electric Forest out there on the west side of the state. Big festival. I know everybody's getting pumped up and excited about that. I hope you guys have a great time. Please be safe, be hydrated, and be careful, all that good stuff. But I wish all you festival goers well. I know it's something you all look forward to very much so. So have a blast. Other things we got going on here, man. We got Texas up the yin yang. We got Canada going nuts with legalization. We got some newts I want to talk to you about this week. We got Lara apparently just had a board meeting, had a little powwow, and decided to start issuing out bulletins left and right. We're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about legalization. So let's get it on. John, what you been going on? You got here at Flint Talk All Points TV. I still want to call this Flint Talk.
Yeah. So what? I'm sorry. I was checking the phone. There's
yeah. No, All Points TV. My bad.
Yeah, All Points TV. Yep.
What's going on, man?
What's going on here? It's like we do a lot of shows.
I know.
Yeah.
I want to tell these people about some of the other shows.
Oh, see, we have a black conservative known as George Moss called the show called What's Going On.
That's right. What's going on with Mr. Moss? He's a professor. Right?
Well, he was a teacher, a professor, educator. I guess the best thing to broad umbrella covering for that. And then we also have Faith and Hope of Charity, which is a ministry. We also have Shepherdess Catherine Hunter Williams, who does a show called Yah's Couple of Blessings, which is also a youth ministry.
Oh, right.
Then we also have we have the show you do, and then we have we have all kinds of interviews too.
Awesome.
And so and I think we're also going to be adding a show. I can't really reveal the name of it because it hasn't really been given to me yet. But there's a guy. It's going to be kind of an interesting show. All I can say is just look forward to an announcement. It's coming up maybe this Friday. I think might be the premiere.
Cool.
So we're doing we're up to close to 1,000 shows under the All Points banner. So
check that out. Over 1,000 shows.
That's quite awesome. A bit. So
yeah, a lot of material and good stuff too. It's not just nonsense.
No, because they cover a lot of stuff. Like your show covers more probably in depth about medical marijuana, the legalization efforts, probably than they're going to get unless they try to go to websites and stuff like that. Just as you give a good like the digest version, and you try to provide them where you're getting the information from, so they can go check up on it further. But I think you're very informational. I mean, I point people to your shows. Plus, we also are connected still to Flint Talk, the posting forum. And I've known several reporters. That's where people post about what's going on around Flint.
Yeah.
And a couple of reporters I talked to about the Flint water crisis said that they have gone back to the archives of Flint Talk's posting forum. And you have to register to use that, by the way. But it's really good because you have a woman who goes by the name of Untangling Webs. that she does a lot of research, and she covers the stuff, the minutia of all this, much more than MLive ever would, and she's been doing it for years. So check out her. Her name is really Sally, but it's Untangling Webs on Flint Talk. So that's what we're also connected to, because that's kind of a parent, kind of a sister kind of connection there. So we try to get the information out there.
That's cool. Well, I want to share that with you guys because it is so tough to get the real story from the news anymore. And I'm not just talking about CNN, of course. I'm talking about even just right down to local news, MLive, like John mentioned. Half the times the stories are incomplete, or it's some kind of a doggone slideshow you got to thumb through. It's just useless information, and really they're just trying to sell ad space, and I just find it to be discouraging at times. And I like real sources of information like we have here at All Points TV, getting it from real people who actually care. So all right, that was my pump for the show.
I appreciate it, because I don't try to push that much out there, but I just become aware.
I feel like I have to, John, just because of the incredible inadequacy of the news.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean,
unless they're reporting on a weather situation, like we had the Houghton floods over this past weekend, and there were some beautiful shots in the paper that were taken to illustrate what was going on there. But the actual reporting was pretty poor. So it's like if the paper can't capture in a photo, you're not going to get the information. And so I feel like we need other sources out there that are unbiased, or at least not promoted by some corporatocracy or whatever, where you can get real information.
Well, the thing is, we got advantages that you can sit there and you can flesh out an entire point or a story rather than
we don't have to keep it within 30 seconds to keep the advertiser happy. So all right, I'm going to move on here. We'll get into medical marijuana stuff and some marijuana information as well. The first thing I want to talk about this week and get this out there. We're obviously approaching legalization here in Michigan. We've got the ballot proposal coming up in November, and it is definitely going to a vote. We talked about that on the podcast here a couple weeks ago, where the actual legislature in Michigan almost derailed it and decided to take it under their own wing and make up their own law and vote on it. That didn't happen, and it is going to a vote. So in November, public's going to be going to vote on whether or not we should legalize cannabis for adult recreational purposes. We're talking about people that are 21 years and older, and I want to get out some of the information about that proposal, let you guys make your own decisions on this, okay? So if it does go through in November and we pass legalization for recreational use here in Michigan, this is what you're going to be looking at in a nutshell on a personal level. Talking about the ability to grow 12 plants at home. Now, these plants cannot be visible from anywhere, basically. So it's going to have to be 100% privacy fence with a roof type of thing, very similar to what we've already seen in the medical marijuana field here in Michigan, or an indoor type of grow. It doesn't get into what type of locks and so on like that yet. I'm sure Lara will dole out rules if this should go through. But initially, you'd have the ability to grow some plants on your own, provide for yourself 12 plants. There you go. You also have the ability to have 2.5 ounces on your person at any given time, anywhere. All right, unless it's otherwise prohibited for some odd reason. But all in all, most part, Michigan law would protect you to carry up to 2.5 ounces without being considered a criminal on your person. You'd also allow to be able to store up to 10 ounces in addition to that at your home. So you can have 2.5 on you. You can have 10 more at home legally. Everybody, no problem, no card, no nothing. Just everybody gets to do it if you're 21 years in age older. Also, there's a little bit of a clarity here on concentrates, and they're stating that you could have 2.5 ounces of flour or 15 grams of concentrate. So they are making a fine line there of distinction between the two, which are legally allowed to possess and carry. I did not see an additional amount of concentrate being allowed to store as we see for the flowered cannabis material. So I don't know if it's included in that or if it's separated. It's not clearly stating in the language. Also not clearly stated in the language is allowable amounts for medibles. So it doesn't say like you can have 12 brownies or 15 cupcakes. It doesn't say anything about it. It just simply says 2.5 ounces of flour on your person, 10 ounces stored at home, or 15 grams of concentrate on your person. So maybe there should be more clarity there, maybe not, but that's what we're looking at. All right. Again, grows can't be visible. I think that's a pretty big point. Another thing that I want to point out to this is it does allow for what they call micro grows. It doesn't specify what those are, what those limits are, what the numbers are, and it leaves it to LARA to decide what this is going to look like. I think the public has the picture of some sort of a small business, if you will, producing and selling directly to the public. And again, we don't know exactly what this looks like. I know that's what the intention of the category is. And I got this directly from Jeffrey Hank, who basically helped write this proposal, or what is now going to become law, hopefully, if we vote on it. But at any rate, that was cut out specifically, making a caveat for the small micro business grower to be able to produce and provide and sell directly to the public, not having to go through the commercial chains. Again, we don't know what that looks like, but it is obviously an area of key importance for a lot of people out there who have an entrepreneurial outlook on this type of bill. And I know obviously there's going to be a lot of people out there that are in the, let's say, the more corporate type style. You know, they want to cash in on the medical marijuana business or on the marijuana business in general. And of course, those guys are going to come to the table. We expect that. But I think we also need to have that carved out protection for the small business owner as well here in Michigan, to be able to compete and to be able to operate legally. So we have yet to see that. It is a section in the bill, but it is one of those things where we're going to have to watch the state to make sure they don't just carve it up to pieces to make it worthless. That is also an option as well. One of the things that patients are going to face, and ultimately business owners will face as well, is the 10% excise tax that will be levied on all cannabis products. So in addition to your state sales tax, which of course you know is 6%, you'll also be paying an additional 10% tax on top of that for your cannabis product when it becomes legal for adult recreational use. So that's kind of why we got the photo here right on the back, and I think it's appropriate. I mean, the Boston Tea Party, as you well know, really sort of a pinnacle in our revolutionary process in becoming a country. And obviously one of the biggest things is simply the slogan that was raised to banner, which was taxation without representation. And I feel that the cannabis industry is sort of putting this on themselves in order to be legitimized and to be legalized. And while that seems like a small sacrifice to pay for some, for others, I think it's an exorbitant fee, and I think it's wholly unnecessary, and I think it's grossly undemocratic that these businesses are being taxed at such deplorable rates while not being represented federally at all. We're still being treated like criminals. It's still illegal on a federal level. Still not allowed to bank, still paying exorbitant tax fees, things like 280E, crushing cannabis businesses. If you're a business owner, you know what I'm talking about. And the thing about it is that we continue to push for the legitimization and the legalization of this product while sort of giving away the goose before we've even gotten it. And I'm speaking about this 10% tax excise. And if you recall, we talked about this on the program previously when the State Department of Treasury just arbitrarily decided to tax patients here in Michigan that have been operating in this program now for nearly 10 years, and just put the onus on them and on any medical marijuana licensed facility dispensaries to collect an additional sales tax fee on their medication. So right now, if you're a patient in Michigan and you are purchasing your medication, or should I say transferring your medication from your caregiver, you are to be keeping track of that amount and paying a 6% sales tax at the end of the year when you file your income taxes on the medication that you've purchased. That's law. That's what you're supposed to be doing now. That's 6% tax fee, and basically you've got no return for that as a patient or a caregiver. And I should say just patients, because caregivers aren't affected by this, but in reality they are, of course. And I think that's atrocious. So we are here, trying to legitimize things and yet giving away things that shouldn't be given away, paying for fees that shouldn't be given away. And I'd like to point out, when the government goes on a wild tangent and just feels like they can tax things that are, sort of luxury items, like for example, tea. I mean, back in the 1700s, tea was a luxury. That was a big deal. There wasn't a lot of, drinks. You didn't have Red Bull or Coca-Cola for that matter. You couldn't even get a ginger ale. So there was a limitation on luxury items, and tea was a luxury item, and the government felt like, oh, well, because you're doing so well, pilgrims, and you can afford tea, we'll tax the crap out of it. And that's what they did. And eventually, you can see what happened from that. And we're doing the same thing to cannabis today. In fact, we're encouraging it. And I just find that to be ironic. I find it to be stupid.
Yeah.
Why on earth would you do that? But here we are. We've done it. We're asking for it. And believe me, they're going to give it to you.
I just understood that people say, well, let's legalize it and tax it. I went, why do we have to tax it? It's a plant. So
everything is taxed anyway.
I know, but
nobody said it was going to be tax exempt.
Right, but I don't understand like the eagerness to say. To me, I've learned this adage back when I started hanging around the libertarians: is taxation is a means of control. Taxation is a way to destroying whatever you wanted to get destroyed. That's the way they say. Well, because sin tax, we have a luxury tax,
True.
and then years ago they passed a certain tax on yachts because the rich people only buy yachts. Well, then it had a devastating effect on those who actually did work on those yachts.
Right.
So I mean, no tax doesn't impact. There's no tax out there that doesn't impact on a larger population that beyond the intended target. So I mean, I don't understand why people are so eager. Well, just like legalize and let them tax it. Well, why? Why give them something more to have more money coming in so there's no accountability already?
We already have an incredible. I think there's an overwhelming majority of the people in this country feel that the government is wasteful. They do not spend their money well. They're not transparent in their spending, and what they do spend it on is questionable. I mean, the services that we demand as a public, which would be our police, fire, education, roads, public works like water, things like this, they're falling apart. And we're not somehow allocating the money correctly to make sure that those essential services are being provided. And yet, here we are offering to give them more money so that they can continue to throw it in the wind. To me, it just seems ridiculous. So I'm not a fan of the 10% excise tax. I don't think that it should have ever been included in the language. And I'm tired of people saying, like, oh, well, if we allow them to tax it, then it'll legitimize us. We are legitimate. Cannabis is legitimate. What's illegitimate is the propaganda campaign that's been funded for the past 80 years talking about how cannabis makes you a racist. That's illegitimate, okay? And I think that we need to change our rhetoric and we need to rethink how we're doing things. You have to understand one of the primary fundamentals here in economics is if you tax and regulate something to death, you will create a black market for that product. And that's exactly what happened with the tea. Okay, so if you think that can't happen with cannabis, just look at anything. I mean, in fact, right now, actually, we're just about to start paying an additional tax for those people who are tobacco consumers. Here in Michigan, your taxes are going up July 1st. I think it's going up like 60 cents a pack or something like this. So now, just like gasoline, in fact, you're paying more in tax and fees for that product than you're paying for the product. And it's only going to be a matter of time before you start to see alternatives being offered because you've created this black market. Now, I don't think you're going to have black market gasoline by chance. They got a pretty good control on that. But you may see black market tobacco.
Well, here's a point.
I haven't seen any yet, but I'm saying actually I can't take. I think I have seen black market tobacco.
But here's a point too that you're in line with your background right now, the Tea Party and all that. The Boston Tea Party rather. Here's the thing is all this stuff about taxing and prohibition and and embargoes and stuff like that, imposing that kind of stuff. I don't know if people know this, but when King George III was actually wanting to get his coronation robes created, the tailors that were doing this had to go buy the stuff that he was demanding to put on his coronation robe because they had to go buy it on the black market because it was prohibited by the past kings' mandates and rules for embargoes because they wanted to put the hurt on their competitors, which were from other countries. So here this guy was wearing all the stuff on him. There was anybody else wearing it, they would have been penalized for even possessing. Right. So I mean, this is how bizarre this whole goes. For taxation is a limitation of freedom, and anybody who can't see that is an idiot. Sorry. Yeah.
And I understand you got to pay your fair share. I don't necessarily argue with that, but I think John and I were having a good conversation prior to the podcast beginning of what is fair. I mean, when government's taking more than half of someone's income, that doesn't seem fair. When you're paying more for tax than you are for the product, that doesn't seem fair. Another example, we have a lot of folks right here in Michigan who are paying more for their car insurance than they are for their car note. That doesn't seem fair either. How about another thing, like our tax, I don't want to call it a tax because it's not a tax. It's not even what the government calls it. They call it a shared responsibility fee for those of us who don't have health insurance. penalizing someone because they can't afford a product, that's not fair either. It doesn't make sense. So I know I'm ranting on things here that probably have nothing to do with cannabis, but it seems like it's an reoccurring theme that's going on here, and we need to wake up because we're going to tax ourselves out of existence. And I think that cannabis patients need to understand what's being done to them, by the government, by the industry, and I think business owners need to understand that as well. That you are going to create your own competition because of the regulation that you're so eager to dive into. If you look at the amount of fees and licensing, application fees and so on that's going on right now currently for the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, and then add on top of that the fees and the taxes that they're going to charge to the patients on top of the product, we're going to have an artificially high cost product that's going to be undercut by a black market. It absolutely will, because there will be somebody always willing to do it for a little bit less. However, your government won't. And that's the bottom line. So we need to be careful about how we grow businesses in here in Michigan, and we also need to be careful about how we word our regulation, especially when we're the ones proposing it. I mean, good grief. All right, moving on here. I think I even started to get into this a little bit, but I'm going to back up. LARA issued out a couple different bulletins this week. Apparently, they don't have enough to do with their MMFLA, but they felt it necessary to issue out packaging requirements for medical marijuana products. Now, of course, I want to first clarify and let everybody know that's listening. Of course, we have mainly patients and caregivers at the Genesee County Compassion Club. This does not affect you, all right? Is it something that you want to comply with? Is this something that you want to emulate in your own products to your own patients? Maybe it's something you should think about. But you don't have to, all right? So the first thing is understanding that when LARA is issuing out these guidelines for MMFLA, they do not apply to patients and caregivers, okay? Unless they somehow specifically state otherwise, but they have not done so, and so these requirements do not apply to you. However, these are some of the requirements, and I want to go over these with you. The first one is in regards to edible products, and it's stating that no edible marijuana product can be in the shape, color, package, or labeled in a manner that it would appeal to minors aged 17 and younger. It says no edible marijuana product can be associated with or have cartoons, caricatures, toys, colors, designs, shapes, labels, or a package that would appeal to minors. So they're kind of covering all the bases here. It says here, no edible marijuana product can be easily confused with commercially sold candy. The use of the word candy or candies on the package or labeling is prohibited. And it says here, any edible marijuana product must be in child-resistant packages or containers. So I think it's not specific, it's very general. It covers a lot of different types of questions that could be raised. Obviously, they're trying to have a clear separation here that any type of marijuana product cannot look like anything that would appeal to a child, and it cannot be packaged in anything that would appeal to a child. And it needs to be packaged in something that is child resistant, I guess I would say. So that's in regards to edibles, and I mean, obviously it could be applied to other categories as well, but that's pretty drastic there. I think that if you go to Colorado and you look at some of the dispensaries and the products that they have on the shelves there, their products are pretty close on to what this is asking for. So it's not out of line, it's not outlandish to have a separation here. If you notice, most of your alcoholic products, they may be brightly colored, yes, but they don't look like a gummy bear. You know what I mean? Or maybe they do. I mean, I haven't seen any in the store for sale, so if they are, I apologize. But I mean, obviously, we don't want these things getting into the hands of kids. We don't want them getting confused with being some sort of candy. You know, pick up a candy bar, you think, oh, this is a Hershey's, and it's not. It's a medicated chocolate bar. That's not what we want to have happening. So I am a fan of good labeling, of careful labeling, of making sure that patients keep their medication out of the way. They keep it, away from hands that shouldn't get to it, whether that be adult or child hands. And, you're treating it with respect. This is your medicine. You should treat it with respect. And I think most of our patients do, for the most part. I mean, I know a lot of people out there sort of think like, oh, well, cannabis users aren't really the most responsible group of people. I would disagree with that, because I know cannabis consumers are also concerned with their consumer pocketbook, and they don't want to see their medication get wasted or get, in the wrong hands or whatever. So I know most people are pretty careful for the most part, but these rules here are kind of coinciding with what common sense says you should be doing. I guess the problem that I have with the way that this is written is that it is not, in my personal opinion, specific enough. And there could be some products out there that could be construed, well, that looks like it could be appealing to a child, and you're sitting there debating whether it is or it isn't. With the enormous amount of products out there in the market, it's tough to make these calls sometimes. And what I'm going to tell you is you need to err on the side of caution. Don't make it bright and colorful. Make it bland. Make it dull. Make it boring. I know most of you are going to disagree with that, but it needs to definitely be an adult type of a marketing scheme if you're going to do anything like that. And I've seen a whole ton of candied products. I've seen a ton of caricatures, like it specifically states, cartoons, things like this. And I know it's playful, and none of it's done in a manner that is meant to appeal to a child. Of course not. But unfortunately, those things do, and we're going to have to modify our businesses in a professional manner so that it can be done in compliance. And again, these rules here that I'm reading to you, if you're a patient or caregiver, it doesn't apply to you. But it would be a good idea for you to comply on your own reconnaissance, because obviously we don't want these things getting in the hands of the wrong people, especially kids. So, all right, moving on. Let's see what else we got here. Canada. We talked about it a little bit. Canada obviously going full bore recreational adult use, so on and so forth. But one of the things that caught my ear, again on NPR just today, Canada, did you know, is not only going recreational, but they have been exporting their medical cannabis products all over the world. And in fact, actually on the radio today, I heard a story about German pharmacies actually carrying Canadian Hindu Kush. So get that. What a small world we live in. But did you know that? Did you know that the Canadian companies like Canopy Growth, for example, which is the one that was featured on the program today, these are huge multinational corporations that are now exporting medical cannabis products to other countries around the world. And I bring that up because it once again highlights the need for the United States on a federal level to modify their cannabis laws. Absolutely. Here you are missing out on a golden economic opportunity and allowing your neighbor to the north to have free reign, because there's no other industrialized nation out there doing what they're doing right now. And according to the people in the business, that's where their money's at. So why are we letting that slip through our hands here in the U.S.? Makes no sense at all. All right, other things I want to share with you. On from political newsy stuff, I want to talk a little bit about gardening stuff. If you guys didn't notice, I've got this cool Mills shirt on. Mills pays the bills, as it said. I'm not a Mills expert. I just picked this stuff up in the club today. I thought it was pretty cool. They got the little starter pack going on. This was dropped off by Burner. Some of you guys know who he is. Big rap star, I guess. Also featured on a couple different HBO programs. Beautiful Gardens I've seen. I think you guys have heard of Skittles. But at any rate, these are the newts that they're supposedly using out there. This is the new line, Mills. I've not seen this in the grow stores. Maybe you guys have. Maybe it's something you want to request. I personally was going through it just to check it out and see what their basic line is. And of course, you've got your A and your B, which most people recognize as your grow and your bloom. They've also got a what they call a Vitalize product, which if you read between the lines here, it's a silica product, monosilica acid. Then they have a starter product, which looks like it's for stimulating root growth, probably to be used on your seedlings, your clones, and your vegetative plants. Then they have a C4, which is macronutrients, macro and micro, and biostimulants, and carbohydrates and trace minerals. So it looks like it's kind of a catch-all here, C4. It says it's quicker and more abundant fruit set, promotion of plant growth and vitality, increased oil and sugar production. And then, of course, they have a PK product. And I think there was even another one in the box here that's not on the back. Let me open this up here. Here we go. Yeah, Ultimate PK, which is obviously your phosphorus and potassium finishing product, the C4. I guess that is it. So, kind of like a boost product there to be used at the end of the flowering stage to increase your fruit resin production, so on and so forth. Anyways, I thought it was pretty cool. The reason I wanted to bring it up on the podcast isn't just to show off the product. I don't really have any ties to these guys. They're not paying me or anything, but I always like showing off the new stuff anyways. So, but no, the reason I brought it on the show here is I wanted to talk about nutrient lines. There's a lot of different lines out there, and I was recently having a conversation with a good buddy of mine, talking in the garden about different formulas and so on. And the question I had to that person was, well, what are you using? And they said, well, basically, you know, your typical A, B, PK, basically everything that was on this box. And I thought that was pretty cool, you know. And if you look at a lot of the nutrient lines, most of them do have about the same type of products. You're dealing with your starter, your A and B formulas. Sometimes they'll add in things like silica or CalMag. A lot of times you'll have your biostimulant, your mini, and your micro, your macros, and then of course your PK boosters. So these are sort of your essential basic nutrients that you're going to start with. I guess my question was to my friend that we were talking about in the garden was, what are you using for humic acid? What are you using for amino acid? What are you using for your biostimulants? Because a lot of times they don't have biostimulants. I notice Mills does. You know, what are you using for controlling your roots that die off, that suffer from just your natural die-off, runoff during the plant's growth cycle? And anybody that's growing in a container, you're going to have that going on. And the answer for that is typically an enzyme product. So, you know, yes, this is a nice line here. Definitely recommend checking that out. But I also recommend that you take a look at some of the other products in your grow store that I would say are personally essential to a good garden. And some of those other things out there that aren't on these typical lines, like I stated, are humic acids. Humic acids help the plant with nutrient uptake. The other one is amino acids. Amino acids are converted to proteins in the plant, and they help with all sorts of different things. And then the other thing I mentioned is the enzymes. And the enzymes help break down the old stuff as it's starting to die off and convert it into energy for the plant. So, in my personal opinion, these three things are essential ingredients to add to any one of your nutrient lines. And there's a number of different products out there that you can look at. Of course, I know we have some growers in the club that use the Canna line product. That's pretty full spectrum. It has all of those things that I just mentioned. But there's a lot of other lines out there that don't have those additional things. And you might have to look through your grow store to see, well, where can I find humic acid? There's quite a few different types of humic acids out there. Quite a few different companies make a humic acid formula. It's easy to use. Same thing with amino acids. You can do the same thing there. And then enzymes. You'll also find a plethora of different enzyme products. I will tell you, you know, these things, they're not cheap. Enzyme products are pretty expensive because they do require live culture and all this, that, and the other to make it work. Aminos are not quite as bad. Same thing with humic acids. But they really do help the plants with the overall nutrient uptake and help better utilize these things in the nutrient line that you're already purchasing. So I know a lot of you feel like, man, why do I want to go spend that much more money, you know, at the grocery store? I'm already dumping a boatload on this nutrient line. Well, these other extra things, they'll not only increase your yield, but they'll also increase the quality of your product. If you notice, a lot of times when you start reading about things like biostimulants, micro and macronutrients, amino acids, stuff like this, you'll notice that the emphasis of the product is always talking about increased oils. And of course, those oils that they're mentioning are the extract that you're trying to get. That's the trichome forming on the plant. So this is the resin that we're talking about. And those oils, they contain the resin, they contain the terpenes, the things that give it the flavor and the scent that you love. If you want to increase those things in your plant, those are the things that you want to add. Humic acids, amino acids, and an enzyme to help break down the plant tissue. So I would recommend those things to any nutrient line that's out there if it isn't already included. And you know, it's the nice thing about those types of products is You don't typically have to worry about burning your plant with that type of a thing. Humic acid, amino acids, enzymes you can use too much of. You want to be careful with that. You don't want to, eat your entire plant up. But bubble wrap, woo! But I would definitely recommend those products. So check them out at your local grow store and support your grow store, man. I mean, these guys are not they're not out there supplying the big corporate guys. They're little guys like you and us. So treat them right? Okay. All right, that's what I have for you guys this week on the Genesee County Compassion Club show. I wanted to get you up to speed, motivate you, tell you to get out there, do your thing. You know what I mean? Enjoy summer. It's right around the corner. It's literally tomorrow. So please enjoy summer. And, I guess the only way you can make sure that you are represented is if you vote. So please, if you haven't registered to vote, now's the time to get that done. We got the primaries coming up here on August 7th. Definitely need your support. We definitely need you to take the time to vote on August 7th. And you can't do that if you're not registered. So please, get registered to vote if you haven't done so. I don't know. What else should I say? Spade and neuter your pets? All right. Thanks for being with me this week on the Genesee County Compassion Club show. John, thanks for being with me back in the studio here at All Points TV. Love being here. You guys are great. Make sure you check out all the other podcasts they have for the other important information for real news. All right. You guys have a great week. I love y'all. See you next week on the Genesee County Compassion Club show.